How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sunday, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern, Saturday mornings. Jim Valley, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern, Sundays, with Andrew Zarian. And it is Monday here on the show, and you know what that means? Got a lot to talk about here today. We got a lot coming up. We got Raw tonight, NXT tomorrow. And, of course, Wednesday is Blood and Guts, AEW Dynamite. We'll talk about the lineups for those shows. SummerSlam is coming up as well. I'm sure a lot's going to happen on Raw that will build into SummerSlam. And then we have got a lot of news. And we're going to start off with the injury update because at this moment, 5 major injuries in AEW to talk about here today and some updates. And I got some scoops here. I haven't talked about any other shows, but we're going to talk about it here today. Although if you are a subscriber on my X, you probably know about them already. Just to plug that very quickly. But anyway, the G1 started this weekend. We'll get Mike's thoughts on what he has seen thus far. Bobby Lashley on his way out of WWE, and he's got some ideas. We'll see what ends up happening. The Motor City Machine Guns probably on their way to WWE. And then we've got some other news and returns. Kota Ibushi back in the ring. El Desperado out of the ring. And then we've got all of the results from all of the big shows this past weekend, including Slammiversary, which we can talk about later this week with Lance Storm, and also the Smackdown show from Friday night, and the Collision show. And we could talk a little bit about Rampage if you want as well. And hey, Vinny and I went on a road trip this weekend, although we talked about that mostly on the Bryan and Vinny show. But it was a lot of fun, that show we went to. Anyway, if you want to text us here today, 425-780-7566. That is 425-780-7566. F4W Online at gmail.com. F4W Online, Threads, Instagram, and Cameo at Bryan Alvarez on X. Back in a moment with more Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. I see everybody in the chats talking about old Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry was robbed because he didn't win the title this past weekend at the Slammiversary show. All I know is I did not think there was any chance Joe Hendry was winning. Why? That sounds ridiculous, Brian. Well, no, because I think that Joe Hendry is going to end up the TNA champion. But to me, if I'm going to make him the guy, he's winning in a one-on-one singles match in a main event against somebody. That was like a six-way?
Yeah.
Multiple people in there. It's like, you don't crown your first ever big Joe Hendry push winning a rando six-way or whatever. Oh, my Lord.
Well, look, and Nick Nemeth had
Hey, can you take over for a sec, talk about Slammiversary?
Sure.
Of course I get a disaster right when this starts. Stand by.
Naturally. Well, look, Nick Nemeth actually had failed before against Moose, where I thought he was going to win the title. So for him to win it in this way the second time around, okay, cool. That wins the title. They needed a new champion. Moose did not need to have that title. We've gone with Moose a lot over the TNA years, and they needed a change. So Nemeth with that belt, that makes sense. Also during the match, Josh Alexander turned heel. And I think that's going to be important to the story of Joe Hendry down the line as well. Joe Hendry is not lasting forever in NXT. He says he's still got time left, significant time, if I'm not mistaken, on his deal with TNA. So it's not like he's just going to stick around and stay in NXT. He's going to be going back to TNA. And he's obviously, because of the stardom that he gets from NXT, that's going to play into his story with him coming back and him wanting to go after the title. And now we have a roadblock in his way, and that is Josh Alexander, who's now got this fresh coat of paint on him. He's got this new killer instinct again that he wants to, I'm sure, go after Nemeth in the title. So there's going to be time for Joe Hendry. I think everything in the long run is going to be okay here, much like I would tell Brian about Javon Evans. I think Javon Evans is okay. I know he's not in the main event picture right now, but look, as long as he can jump from the floor to the second rope or the first rope and do acai moonsaults, I think he's going to be fine. I think the fans are going to remain with him and stick with him, and that's what's going to happen in TNA as well, too, when it comes to Joe Hendry. I don't think anything is lost in this. Lenny saying, no, not the same. What is not the same, Lenny, as I turn into Brian here and now argue with the chat, okay? What are you talking about here? Although I do agree, heel Josh is going to be interesting. He's needed that killer instinct for a while. We've seen him go through all of the stuff with his family and having to give up the title and then having that rubbed in his face and all that sort of stuff. So another thing, too, Steve Macklin. I know I'm the only person on the planet that seems to like Steve Macklin, but Steve Macklin is good in TNA. He stands out in TNA, and that's another thing you can throw in Joe Hendry's way as well.
Where was I?
Slammiversary, the main event.
Yeah,
Joe Hendry's going to be okay.
Hanalei starts gymnastics camp this week, and I had my mom take her to the wrong gym.
Did you tell her to take her to your gym?
No, it's just a different place. Anyway.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Where were we? Yeah, Joe Hendry should win it from a guy in a singles match.
Yes.
Okay.
Nemeth
and this is easy. I don't even watch TNA. I can tell you exactly what's going on. So Joe Hendry pinned Moose, eliminated the champion in that match. That's his big win.
Yes.
He gets turned on by Josh Alexander.
Lineal, that's important.
Josh Alexander turns heel, turns on him to eliminate him.
Exactly.
Nick Nemeth wins.
Yeah.
All right, you do Nick Nemeth and Josh Alexander at some point. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, there's a lot of shuffling of belts, but Josh Alexander should beat Nemeth for the title at some point. No. And Joe Hendry gets his revenge and pins Josh Alexander, wins the title down the road. Easy.
No. Joe Hendry should beat Nemeth because, look, Joe Hendry beating Alexander would be cool in TNA lore and all that stuff because Josh Alexander has been so great during the Impact era for them for so long. But the reality is, I think Joe Hendry would benefit from a win over Nick Nemeth. And I know somebody's saying, oh, my God, he's been around forever, all that sort of stuff. You can build that up where Joe Hendry gets his biggest career victory. He not only beat the world champion and actually has a lineal claim to the belt, so you can't say that he's not a fake champion or anything like that. And then he goes on, beats Alexander in this new persona, and goes on and beats Nemeth at whatever their next big show would be in the fall.
I don't know, man. Doesn't matter.
Look,
But let's talk about this.
He'll be okay.
Let's talk about this. There's a lot of injuries that we need to get into. And, there are a lot of injuries in WWE as well, but there's a lot of injuries in AEW right now. So, first, it started actually like a week ago when Riho was wrestling Lady Frost, and Riho tried a crossbody to the outside, and I don't know if Lady Frost was just like too far away or what the situation was. Dave said this was a perfectly normal move, and he is absolutely wrong.
Yeah, I thought that was insane.
Riho was nowhere near her. She did a high cross to like Lady Frost's legs, which is not how you're supposed to do it, and fell on the ground and broke her wrist because she did not get caught.
She fell short. That's when Dave is saying that, people do this all the time. It's usually dives to the outside. It's not the same thing. I don't know
it's when you get caught. I mean, if you get caught, everything is fine. If you don't get caught.
And you come up short.
And here's the thing. Sometimes people don't get caught, but they're not expecting to get caught. For example, when Charlotte does that moonsault off the post to the floor, she's not expecting to get caught.
No.
She's doing a backflip and landing on her feet. Riho was expecting to get caught, wasn't caught, and thus she wasn't expecting to land and broke her wrist. So she is injured. And then, also on a crossbody, Hikaru Shida was facing Sky Blue, and this was another one, and again, it's the high cross. The high cross, you've got to go out, okay? You've got to go out. This was like straight up and straight down onto Sky Blue. There's no easy way to catch that. And she ended up breaking her foot or her ankle, Sky Blue. So now she's out of action for a while.
And because the way it was set up and the camera, not only did it hurt, it looked terrible. So it wasn't even like something spectacular. Again, it was just brutal, and I feel bad for her.
And we've got Dalton Castle, who got knocked out by a Roderick Strong jumping knee, and Tony Khan. And actually, this is to his credit. We interviewed Tony Khan a couple of weeks ago, and one of the questions we had was about injuries and how come these injuries are always secret. These people, they just vanish, and it turns out they're injured, but like nobody says anything about it. And he said, well, some people don't want the injury public, and I was like, we don't need to make the injury the actual, but like at least say that a person is injured. And that's what they did with Dalton Castle. Dalton Castle is out, he said, this is Tony Khan, for the rest of the year.
Ouch.
So I don't know if that's just a concussion, if he also broke an orbital bone or some bone in his face, or what the situation is. But he is out of action for all of 2024. So that sucks. Then we've got J.D. Drake, who we talked about a while ago. He injured himself. Remember that was that match where he hurt his foot, and then he still managed to fight his way through and do that moonsault, and the place just went haywire for that? Well, turns out he has got a torn ligament in his foot.
Yeah.
So he's out of action for a while. Torn ligament, which could be a while. So obviously best wishes to him as well. And Jay White. Jay White, they said he was injured on television, which at first I presumed was just a storyline. But he is hurt. He hurt his foot in the match with Hangman. And we've been told likely he won't be out too long. So it's not like some of these, it's not like Dalton Castle was going to be out at the end of through the rest of 2024. He should be back fairly soon. But also, apparently, a broken foot or a foot injury of some sort. So anyway, more after the break. Observer Live. Back on the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Old Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Old Mike Sempervive.
I am. Haggard, too.
Yes. Oh, boy, are you ever. How much of the G1 did you see? None?
None.
Has anybody seen any of the G1?
I've kept up with it, but
Crying
I
out loud. Yesterday I asked
yet.
Dave, he hadn't seen anything except for the Takeshita match.
I was with my family all weekend. There's only so much I could watch, for heaven's sakes, and I'm caught up on it. I know what's going on. I just have not seen any of it yet.
Well, I'm not caught up as well, but, like, has anybody seen any of this? Sandman 31 saw both days. Well, I'll ask him. How was it, Sandman? See what he has to say.
All right. How was he doing in his Voices of Wrestling prediction contest with Chris Samsa?
Who are you talking about? Sandman?
No. I'm just giving him time to respond here. What does he say?
Night 1 was excellent, says a different guy. Both were great.
All right.
I've seen both days. That doesn't help me.
No. Do you have an opinion?
Yes. This sounds like a very, very exciting G1.
Well,
Pretty good 2 days, says Sandman. Liked Shingo versus Naito on night 1. So Naito wasn't doing the Coming to America thing where he just didn't try it all and looked terrible? That's good.
well, we don't know that yet.
David Finlay versus Tsuji was really good, says Brian Rose. A little from column A and a little from column B, this person says.
There's always one.
Shingo versus Naito was like classic tragedy, the downfall of a god. Except Naito loses every match so far. He may lose again tonight.
It may have been also how he looked. Because Shingo can still go, and that's one thing Naito really can't do anymore, at least not in how people want to try to remember him.
All right, so it seems that Takeshita versus Tsuji was the best match so far.
I did hear that was really, really good.
I'm going to try to watch some of it later.
The best of anybody in this thing so far.
We'll see how it goes.
I like the fact that Oleg
toast.
Bolton is, getting wins. I was surprised that Callum Newman did, but this is a transition year, obviously, for New Japan Pro Wrestling. And the big thing 7 months into the year is how much progress have they really made with any of their guys. Forget about what you saw on Forbidden Door. They really haven't. So for Tsuji and Umino and Narita and Uemura, this was going to be a big tournament for them, but also for guys like Hanare, for guys like Callum Newman, who they obviously have eyes on really doing something with, and they've gotten him off to a good start. So, again, we'll see how everything shakes out by the end, but one thing is for sure, I think as we get closer to January 4th in the Tokyo Dome, somebody has taken that belt off of Naito. I think they have to do that, and whether it's Yota Tsuji or Zack Sabre Jr. or pick somebody, Takeshita, I don't care who you think, it's going to have to come off of them.
As I look at this right here, Zack Sabre Jr. is leading the A block. Well, he's tied with Evil. He's got 4 points.
It's only 2 days in.
And Yuya Uemura is leading the B block with 4 points. And I guess Zack Sabre Jr. is kind of considered the favorite for this thing, but the fact that he's doing so well so early, I think you know what my prediction is for the G1 this year?
What's that?
It's going to be won by Yota Tsuji.
Yeah, I believe that as well too.
That's my prediction here.
Yeah, I'm in my big audio nightmare. We've been doing a G1 preview now for 20 years, however long we've been on this website, and this is a different year. They have a little spin on it in the fact that 6 people are going to have a chance to reach the finals because they are doing a block semifinal. And then you will go on, whoever wins that will go on and, be in the mix. So it goes from 6 to 4 to 2. So you can have 6 different guys get in there, and people start off slow, people start off hot, and things change by the end. But they do have some drama built into the end there, because I don't know if Zack Sabre Jr., I know a lot of people would like to see him get a title shot, and maybe he will. But the reality is, I don't think that that's big enough for New Japan for the Tokyo Dome. I really, really don't, compared to putting over one of these young guys who at some point has got to be put over on top and given a shot.
We also had the return this weekend of Kota Ibushi. returned to DDT after 7 years. And he hasn't had a long match, like a legitimate real match, since, I think, January. The Marufuji match for Noah. This guy, I mean...
that was brutal.
He's had so many injuries, and...
In that match.
It's funny, because like, he's one of those guys that, for years, he did all sorts of crazy stuff. And it was like, is this guy superhuman? Like... He does all of this crazy stuff, and he just keeps going. But like the chickens didn't come home to roost until finally they did. And man, they came home to roost like you never saw before.
Lord.
I mean, he went from, they always say 0 to 60. He went from 60 to 0 is what he did. He just crashed into the wall. And
literally
now he's
on a bicycle.
I mean, it's just... Pretty sad, actually, but
one of the other problems with him is, and nobody talks about this because, steroid use and performance enhancers in Japan never really get spoken about because they're accepted over there. Look at Pride Fighters. Look at a lot of guys in pro wrestling over the years who, I mean, look how swole they were. Look how puffy they were. And look at the size of Kota Ibushi, and I'm not saying that he did, but I'm saying he put on a ridiculous amount of weight, probably way too much weight for his body, especially what he had already put his body through throughout all of those years.
Yeah, you guys remember when that guy was in the Cruiserweight Classic? You guys remember Kota Ibushi in the Cruiserweight Classic?
Yeah.
Go watch those matches and then go watch him like 3-4 years ago.
And look,
it's incredible.
Again, Ospreay's another one, and I worried about him. It's like, oh, God, if he keeps up with the same style that he has, how can you carry around that much weight? Because I watched Rey Mysterio carry around a ridiculous amount of weight, too much for his body for years, and watch his knees. I mean, how many knee surgeries has he had? And Ospreay's already had injuries. But, again, Ospreay, he still has a way. To me, he can take a lot out of his matches and probably, elongate his career because he's so good he could do that. But that's probably not the mentality that he has, but I wish he would look at guys like Ibushi, look at how Naito and Tanahashi and guys like that move around when you don't see him in the public eye and, actually heed some of that.
We've got Alex Shelley, the Motor City Machine Guns, very likely going to WWE. It is not 100%, but, they're doing the goodbye tour. And the goodbye tour almost always means WWE because,
Can't be doing that other stuff with WWE.
The Acclaimed, well, half the Acclaimed, because Max Caster couldn't get a flight. I mean, they worked Defy, they were going to do an indie show this weekend. And, it's usually going to WWE where you got to go say goodbye to everybody. So we'll see where they end up, if they're going straight to the main roster or NXT. I know people would be just outraged at the idea of them going to NXT, but
I'd love it.
I don't have a problem with it at all.
No.
I mean, I'd prefer they went to the main roster to make that kind of money, but there's a lot of great teams and et cetera, et cetera.
You got a lot of talent too that you sign up through these NIL deals, and you're always looking to pull people in from off the indies, and they haven't done that really heavily in a while, but I could always see them doing that again. But Alex Shelley's a guy, as you look internationally, as people come in, he's got all the experience in the world. And they have a lot of great trainers there. They have a lot of bodies there, but there's always room for somebody else who's really good. So if that's going to be part of his future, yeah, I'd still like to see him up on the main roster. I would love to see those guys up there. But if it's going to play into possibly his work future, I mean, I'm fine with him staying in NXT. There needs to be people like that there.
Let's see what we got in the mailbag here, and then we'll get on to the TV reports after the break.
Yes?
Man, people really want After Dark to come back.
It was.
I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it.
Oh, yeah, come on. Let me produce it for you. Come on.
This person says, long-time listener, seldom texter here. Finally went to Fogo de Chao. It deserves all of the stars.
Ooh.
Thank you for being an advocate for meat served on a sword. That is Travis from Wisconsin. A sword. You're welcome, Travis. You're welcome. Fogo de Chao. It's a place to be, brother. Yeah,
is that your number one?
Well, here's the thing, everybody. It's all-you-can-eat meat and salad bar. Now, everyone's like, oh, rich, blah, blah. Now, listen, here's the gimmick, okay? Because there is a gimmick. First off, you wait for the specials. Second off, they have a lunch gimmick, okay? So you can go in to Fogo de Chao, and for $18, you can have the all-you-can-eat salad bar. All you can eat. And then you can, for $10, add all you can eat any single cut. So if you like the picanha, which is the best, or the flank steak, or whatever, you can choose one cut, and it's all you can eat of that one cut. So for $28, you can go in and eat all of the steak, salad bar, everything, all you can eat for $28. Now, I'm not saying that $28 is nothing, but have you gone to other places of late? Like, I go to McDonald's to get a Happy Meal for my 2 kids. It's almost $28 for a McDonald's 2 Happy Meals. So if you know the tricks, you can get a lot of food for not a lot of money.
Though. You said this is the lunch special. What are the hours on this lunch special?
Dude, it's like, I don't know. It goes from like 10 to 4 or something like that.
10?
Yeah.
Breakfast.
Anyway, more after the break. Observer Live. Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com.
Old Mike Sempervive?
Old Mike Sempervive here.
Yeah.
He had a farm. The chickens came home to roost. The chickens came home to roost in that farm of death.
There were light tubes. It was scary.
Now, I have an update from earlier in the show.
Ooh.
Yeah, because I asked around and I got an answer here.
Do we have a breaking news drop?
I don't have an exact answer, but anyway. So, Dalton.
Yes.
Okay. I know people are going to argue this and say, well, you can't get knocked out and not have a concussion because, depending on how you classify a concussion, some people will say anytime you're knocked out, that's just automatically a concussion. Others will say, well, what was the actual diagnosis? What did the doctors say? Did you have a concussion or not when they did the tests? So Dalton got knocked out by Roderick Strong, but apparently was not diagnosed with a concussion. And the reason that he's out for the rest of the year actually has nothing to do with his head, but he suffered a different injury and needs surgery.
Ooh.
So what that injury is, I don't know specifically, but apparently he had something else and he needs to undergo surgery, and that's why he's out all of 2024. So when the story first came out, he got knocked out, then you hear he's out for the rest of 2024. It sounds like, my God, his serious head injury or whatever. It actually wasn't his head. Something else. He got a different injury in the same match, I think, that he got knocked out in and needs surgery on that. So that's the update on Dalton Castle.
I hope it's not his back. I really hope it's not his back because he has had nothing but problems with it. When he became ROH champion, it just seemed like around then it really gave out for good. And he wrestles with a back brace and... hopefully whatever it is, it's number one, it's not that. And two, whatever it is, hopefully it's not serious enough where he's going to miss any, they're more worried about recovery time when they say the end of the year than keeping him out for maybe that and even longer. So all the best to him. And by the way, his name in Chikara, when he was the wealthy yachtsman of a gold boat, it was Ashley Remington.
Yes,
his name.
Ashley Remington. Where have you been?
Sorry.
Old Mike Sempervive.
Apparently hanging out with Jervis Cottonbelly.
All right, so tonight on Raw, this is what we got. CM Punk returns.
Where'd he go?
He's just not been on the show.
Oh.
So he returns, and they'll figure out whatever they're doing for if they're going to do him and Drew at SummerSlam. Xavier Woods, Otis, and Tozawa against Karrion Kross, Akam, and Razor.
Oh, poor Tozawa.
And Lyra Valkyria against Sonya Deville. Yeah, I said Lyra Valkyria and Valkyria. I mean, so many times. I was watching the Lumberjack match, and Taya's out there, and I was like, yes. I cannot remember how to spell Taya Valkyrie. I'm going to screw it up 85 times. There's too many Valkyries and Valkyrias and Valkyras. I'm lost. Then, we have got NXT on Tuesday. Lexis King versus Eddie Thorpe. Ashanti, apparently he's no longer the Adonis. He's just Ashanti Adonis against Oro the Mensa. He's very wise.
Yay.
And Josh Briggs and Brooks Jensen in a no DQ match. The Virgin versus the Fornicator. No DQs. Yeah.
Sean Spears, here he comes.
And then we've got Blood and Guts on Wednesday.
There it is, Brian. There it is. Sean Spears comes in. He's got his goofy chair, all that stuff. They do the Pillmanizing of the leg. There he goes. He disappears. And the next thing we hear, he'll be back from Japan in the N1 tournament alongside Tavion Heights. How about that?
Very likely. Then we have got Blood and Guts on Wednesday with the Elite. The Jacksons, Jack Perry, Okada, and Hangman Page versus Swerve, Anthony Bowens, Max Caster, Darby, and Mark Briscoe. In Blood and Guts, I fully expect...
Blood and guts.
Well, I don't know. I've been looking at this whole thing.
No guts?
And it's like, okay, well, what are we going to do here? I mean...
I'll tell you.
Well, may I? And then you can tell me?
Sure, I guess you're the host.
Okay. So, Like, everything's all messed up anyway. I mean, what they should have done, if I were booking, based on this last month, is that the Owen Hart Cup should not have been for a championship match at Wembley. And you should have had Hangman get the pin over Swerve and do Swerve and Hangman for the title at Wembley. Instead, because they announced that the Owen was for the title, well, Bryan Danielson ends up winning. He now is going to fight for a title he has publicly stated he doesn't want. And everybody wants to see Hangman. And they ain't getting it. So I guess, well, I mean, I expect Bryan Danielson to win the title. So I could say, Hangman could pin Swerve, and then 2 weeks after All In, you do All Out with Swerve versus Hangman for the title. But I think Bryan's winning the title. That's your big happy ending at Wembley.
Oh.
So, I mean, I don't know.
No, it's not.
I don't know what they're going to do. Well, I guess you could do the Will Ospreay match as well.
I was going to say.
But that's two happy endings.
Throw some bail at you and get out of this thing.
But then my other thought, see, Mike, I'm not done yet. You jumped on me.
All right.
My other thought is, well, Caster or Bowens has to pin Matt or Nick, so you can do that tag title match they've been teasing forever at Wembley. But now FTR's back,
Yeah.
And they want the title shot at Wembley.
That's what they said.
Which begs the question, well, when are the Acclaim going to get this title shot? Because they won a title shot like 2 months ago. It's just been dropped for nothing about it. So, I don't know. And these shirts are too tight. I don't know. So now what are they going to do, Mike? You tell me. You said you were going to tell me.
Well, they can get a title match at some point during this residency that they're having in Texas there. But during this whole blood and guts situation, we already have a tense deal with Okada and Hangman anyway. At least there were some hints.
I got some tension, all right.
Have some. You gotta get rid of that. Have something happen during that match where that's the match for them for All In. It's Okada and Hangman for the Continental title. And then you can actually do Hangman and Swerve if you wanted to at All Out 2 weeks later. You can have your Swerve, to me, look, Danielson, if he's not going to put Swerve over big at the end of this, I don't know if I want to see Danielson as champion. I really don't. But Swerve beating Danielson can be, look, if that's going to be the main event, fine. But what everybody's probably going to have eyes on is MJF Ospreay 2. And that's your happy ending story there. Jamie Hayter coming out at the end of Britt Baker and Mercedes can be part of that whole making everybody happy situation there. So I don't think that, to me, Danielson, that's crazy to me. And here's the thing. Danielson, fine. Danielson wins the belt. You can still do Swerve and Hangman. And so Hangman, again, he still wants his belt, but he still wants to get revenge on Swerve. So to me, the winner of Okada and Hangman for the Continental title, they get the title shot 2 weeks later at All Out, and that's how you get back to Swerve and Hangman.
We've also got Jericho versus Suzuki with the Learning Tree banned from ringside. Is that the return of Sammy? That's what I think.
Yeah.
Britt Baker, Hikaru Shida in a no crossbodies allowed match. The debut of the Glamour Mariah May. We'll see if the fans get into her this time.
The Glamour, you called her the Glamour Mariah May?
That's her new gimmick. The Glamour.
The Glamour.
The
that
Glamour.
Sounds like that is the, okay. It's not the Glamorous or the Glamorous one?
It's the Glamour Mariah May.
That is, to me, on level with Ash by Elegance.
Okay.
The Glamour Mariah May.
Old Mick Sempervive.
The Glamour Mariah May.
Yes.
The Talker, Bryan Alvarez.
Of all the things to push your buttons, the Glamour Mariah May just sets you off.
If she gets a friend and starts doing the cake stand as a finisher, I'm really going to be pissed.
We have MJF speaking as the new international champion. Yeah. All right, a couple of notes from the TV this weekend.
The Glamour?
So we had the Smackdown, which set up a Cody match in the main event, which This is one of those things. I'll get to that later. Andrade and Carmelo Hayes was a really good match. Andrade won. It was excellent. We had Nia and Bayley doing an interview where Bayley flat out said that you changed my trajectory at SummerSlam 2017. You didn't hurt me because you were big and strong and vicious. You hurt me because you're big, clumsy, and reckless.
Damn.
I'll say. Nia was all gotten to and stormed off. We had Chelsea and Bianca, which, of course, Bianca won in a minute. Set up a tag title match at some point down the road. Had the LA Knight Logan Paul contract signing, which ended up, they actually signed the contract. So that match is official for SummerSlam. Tiffany Stratton lost to Michin after Bayley distracted and destroyed her briefcase. Then Tiffany got rolled up and pinned. It's not explained why that's a bad thing to destroy the briefcase. Tiffany's just going to get a new one. Which, listen, here's what I know.
Now your prediction can come true that you've been talking about for weeks.
I told you before Money in the Bank that Tiffany Stratton was going to win because I knew that they had made a fancy pink briefcase, which isn't going to go to whoever. It's going to go to Tiffany.
You can see Nia with it.
So Tiffany, okay, they made the briefcase for her, but then they didn't want to spoil it, so they put a white briefcase up there, which Tiffany wins. And then literally in the post-show press conference, I'm sure knowing they made a pink one for her, she says, I'm going to get rid of this white one. I'm going to make a pink one that looks like a purse and it's got all this. She just describes the entire thing. And then I'm expecting it on the next show, but she comes out with a white one again. And then again. And, someone must have decided, you know what, let's do an angle where Bayley destroys it, and then we'll introduce the pink one, even though Tiffany has already talked about one. So anyway, I'm sure next week she comes out with the fancy pink one. We had Cody and Kevin Owens versus Theory and Waller. This is one of those WWE things. I guess we're just like, there's time between now and SummerSlam. How many freaking times are Theory and Waller gonna, screw up and Theory is going to get hit by Waller? It's in every single match, and they keep coming out as a team. They did this back with Vince every now and then. It's like you knew the team was going to break up, and they shot the breakup angle 9 times, but they just kept coming out together until finally. And by the time they finally do the breakup, back then, you'd seen it so many times that they pull the trigger and you're like, you didn't care. So we'll see if that happens here, but they all beat up.
Division's pretty rough.
They beat up Cody. They beat up Kevin. They necked Kevin on the post. So it looks like Cody's got no friends heading into SummerSlam. And then they'll all come back. And I figure that they do Cody and Solo. You do whatever the finish is. Or you have all of the heels run in. Then the baby faces make the save. So you think, okay, well, it's a fair fight now. But then Tala Tonga debuts. And so now it's uneven again, and the babyface are getting beaten down. And then you can hit Roman's music, and everybody's just out of here. Or you can just start with Jimmy, hold off the Roman one longer. But that's where we're at.
I know it's really asking a lot to do. It's impossible, really, because you don't know what their plans are. But 3 months, 6 months, 9 months? How long before we get Cody and Randy Orton in that big tournament?
Oh, it's coming, brother. It's coming. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Back on the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. People ask about the Filthy Tom show.
What about it?
Well, as you heard earlier today, I sent my daughter to the wrong building for a camp. So I got to pick her up this afternoon. So, if you are listening live to the Filthy Tom show this afternoon, we are going to be starting at 4:50 Eastern, 1:50 Pacific, starting 10 minutes early. So we can end 10 minutes early so that I can get
That's what you think.
to camp to pick her up. No, I'll just turn it off, brother. I'm in charge. Push that button, it's done. So that's the plan. We're going to start 10 minutes early. So, and, you know, if you're listening on any of our services, WrestlingObserver.com or Apple Music, F4WOnline.com/Apple, or even video.f4wonline.com, watching the replay, it doesn't matter at all. But if you are watching live on video.f4wonline.com, then you must watch 10 minutes early, or you'll miss the first 10 minutes when he does whale jokes. So that's the plan. And then I'll be back later on tonight with Dave. Hopefully not too late, because these kids got to get up so early for camp. Look at my face.
What time did you
So
get the show done this morning?
It actually was not too bad yesterday. I told him it would start at 11, so we actually started at 11:40. And then we were done by 12:40.
Wow.
And I was in bed by 1, and then kids are up at 7. That was kind of rough.
Who's the old man here now?
You!
Why?
Kidding me? Anyway, we're out of here. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Wrestling Observer Live.